Boys and girls, it's so good to have you here on this very special edition of War Weekly, being broadcast for the very first time on War Radio via our new website, WrestlingAudioRevolution.com. Now, the Commissioner, Sean Cunningham, the co-host of this show, will be joining us in just a few minutes, as he always does. But I need to let you guys know, I need to give you a little heads up first. He is still recovering from a week-and-a-half-long Broadway that he has been working against the top monster heel in any territory. Influenza, it has been stiff, it has been snug, it has been an Ishii-style affair. But he has promised me, voice or no voice, I don't give a damn. I'm coming back to action today on War Weekly. He's battered, he's bruised, his voice, again, probably quite weak. I may have to do the majority of the talking. And if Sean can hear me right now, he's thinking, nothing new there. But it will be our first show since the hashtag cancel the WWE Network riots of 2015, which I don't think anyone will be surprised. Yeah, I threw a few Molotov cocktails in that riot. But it's starting to get a little repetitive. We're starting to talk ourselves in circles, starting to feel like a rerun. So today on the show, we will find closure regarding Roman Reigns, the decision-making of Vince McMahon, the treatment of Daniel Bryan. All this and much more. Will Sean Cunningham be ready to return back to action? Will this be a Daniel Bryan situation? Will the fans turn on me if Sean isn't able to talk very much and they're going to think, I have something to do with it? I certainly hope not, but only time will tell. So you're listening to War Weekly right here on War Radio. Enjoy the show.
The internet and people being smarter to the internal workings of the business, the second they see us getting behind somebody and starting to push them, I think is that, there's a group of fans, and I hate to use the term because I think it's overused and people complain about it, it's like the vocal minority or whatever. It's not a vocal minority, but listen, you know as well as I do, back in the day, with the exception of a few guys that were really, really in the upper echelon and just over no matter what, you or certain guys, there were towns that you went to that you knew they're heels. This is a heel town, right? They're going to like the bad guys. You're going to not being as enamored with the good guy. A white meat babyface was dead in the water in those towns. Right. In essence, you were a heel. You're 90% of you run, right? But you were the heel that was against the establishment, and at times changed. The way people look at it changed, but that component of just telling a storyline and people accepting that storyline for what it is as a storyline is gone, because a large portion of your audience just buys into that. And then another large portion of your audience, they know everything that goes on every 5 minutes, and maybe they know more about what's happening sometimes than we do, right?
I just want to say thanks. We had a blast night. I just want to say thanks. We had a blast night. Thank you for everything.
Sean Cunningham, it's been a long time.
It has.
I shouldn't have left you.
Of course.
Without a strong read. I love when I quote fucking Rakim lyrics and you actually think it's just conversational.
Yeah.
It's been a long time. He's like, yes, it really has. I shouldn't have left you. No, you shouldn't. Without a strong rhyme to step to. Wait a minute, what? What I'm looking at right now, just to loosen up the people, is a big set of knockers. And no, before anybody starts putting some accusations out there, I am a happily married man. My wife's at work right now. So I am alone. I am in my basement studio.
Very good. Got
the mic set up. What I'm looking at is a big set of knockers, though, from the official Stephanie McMahon WWE Workout Fit Series.
Oh, good God.
Which I am currently using to get myself in shape. So
Are you kidding me?
I got the DDP Yoga, right?
Okay.
There's something about, and again, we're on a new radio provider right now. And
yes.
Everybody right now is hopefully listening to us through that provider, which is Zeno Radio, and listening to us on our website, live, WrestlingAudioRevolution.com. As we're here for this War Weekly, the very first War Weekly since the Royal Rumble, so this should be fun. But
this should be
a good hate fuck of Stephanie McMahon is something that I think most of us out there would probably say, we'd be lying if it hadn't crossed our mind at least once.
True. Very true.
Sean Cunningham, you're supposed to be the straight guy. You're supposed to be Gorilla. That's where Gorilla would be like, will you stop, right? When Bobby starts talking about a hate fuck. That's when Gorilla jumps in. Come on, man. Know your role.
Okay, and I understand that to a certain level, but here's the thing. You mentioned the Royal Rumble and everything surrounding it. I have 2 weeks of pent up anger toward this. So
on your mark, get set, go.
Go.
I'll let you go first because
thank you.
It will sort of fit the tone of Fedcast.
For some reason, we had a repeat of last year's Rumble. Everybody wanted Bryan. Everybody in the building in Philadelphia clearly wanted Daniel Bryan to win that match. When they brought Daniel Bryan out at number 10, we were kind of, they're not going to let him go all that long. They were like, we're not going to let him go to the end. And then Roman Reigns came out later on and got booed out of the building, and they booed for the rest of the night. Then you try to bring out The Rock to save it, because honestly, WWE thinks they're thinking 2 steps ahead of the fans all the time when The Rock comes out. And then they boo The Rock out of the building. And now you've stuck yourself in this position where you've got to make this build for Roman Reigns. And to the point where there was a social media campaign the day after the Royal Rumble canceled the WWE network, which was something else that failed miserably. The movement actually probably bothered me more than the Royal Rumble did.
It did for me too, and I think a lot of people will be surprised to hear that, but I'll explain why. And I think it's a lot different reason than most people. So do people really want to know what I think? Because I sort of talked about it right after the Rumble with Shotgun Shan on Vintage Update, and then he's gone on vacation. I've just been depressed with all this fucking snow.
Well, so let's shout out to Shotgun Shan, who I believe is away in a warm climate, is he not?
Yes, he is. He is currently in Cuba right now. He's getting that whole Cuban visit out before the Americans ruin it. That's a whole other story.
That's a different show.
Yeah. What show is that? Because that's your line. Sean, that's a different show. Cunningham, that's your name.
Well, I don't know if we could talk about world
and you know
politics.
what my nickname is too?
What's that?
All 3 of us got nicknames.
Yeah, sure.
Sean is Sean, but that's a different show. Cunningham. I am Luke. I got news for you, Force. And Shan is Shotgun. You know what? Shan. We each got our own thing, man, and it's good. We each got our own catchphrase.
That's good.
And I listened to my brothers again. Fedcast. Awesome show this past week.
Yes.
I love this show, and I think they're one of the best when it comes to just giving you a bit of everything. Giving you, a very in-depth look at Lucha Underground, reviewing that show, really on top of all the storylines. Yes, Fedcast is definitely the most well-rounded in terms of just getting everything in and knowing what's going on with every promotion. Completely disagree with them on the Royal Rumble and what they said about, the fans. And if you guys really want to know what I think, then I'll say. Okay?
I encourage you to do so.
Okay. I am by no means a part of any groupthink. Because in this day and age, to just say IWC is lazy journalism. To me, anyone with a passion for anything investigates it on the internet in this day and age.
It's the way that media works.
It's the modern day we live in. It's not a groupthink. Dave Meltzer, to me, has 1,000 times more credibility than Vince McMahon. But as far as the Roman Reigns thing, whether it's a Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast with Triple H, which we will also talk about on this show, whether it's, one of those DVDs where they want to give you the inside thing, kayfabe was killed by Vince McMahon to evade the athletic commissions.
See December 15th, 1997.
There you go, Sean Cunningham jumping in with the exact date. But, yeah. I mean, it wasn't anything that WWE hasn't utilized a million times, but then they want to complain and they want to turn around and say, oh, the fans know too much and they can't just enjoy it anymore. You've contributed to this. You use it to your advantage when you want to, and then you complain about it when it blows up in your fucking face.
Nice.
So don't encourage people to know more about it. And don't you agree with that? Because to me, if you don't want the people to know any more than what's happening on the screen, you don't bring that shoot garbage into it.
Okay, but here's the issue, and we've talked about this numerous times on this show. If you look at Vince, who's in his 70s now, and I think you have the younger people running it who understand that the internet's part of it, and they want to utilize it in a certain way, whereas Vince just gets bitter about it. But Vince is still making the decision. If WWE could decide which direction they want to go, either use the internet or don't, that would save them a whole lot of grief.
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. If this is just supposed to be a fantasy soap opera, then don't do things that make the fans curious to go beyond that. And the idea of the internet, as you know, Eric Bischoff used to talk about in 1998, being that tiny little minority, it's not anymore.
No.
Because if you're passionate about wrestling, if you're passionate about WWE, what's the first thing you're going to do now? You're going to go into a Google search and say, John Cena's girlfriend, or, you know, there's an example right there. I didn't even mean to make it. Total fucking divas. You know, that's something that has 100% more than Dave Meltzer ever could opened the door to fans being curious about the real lives of these guys. Yeah. What's really happening in the company. And what's really happening in the company is what's really been happening forever. The difference is,
we know now.
Well, I mean, that's what happened at the Rumble. I tell you that much. Those fans knew and that was a smart crowd.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different crowds you could have put that match in front of that would have the same reaction. And the common mistake, the simple answer about that whole thing and why everything went wrong is that the fans are entitled. We want Daniel Bryan to win, and anyone else, we're going to shit on it. We want Daniel Bryan to win because he didn't win last year, and he needs to win every time, and we don't like when our guy doesn't win. It could have been Dolph Ziggler, who I'm not a fan of, but at the same time,
I think the fans would have accepted him.
The people love Dolph. I'm not a Dolph guy, but, you know, again, proving I'm not part of any groupthink in terms of internet darlings is the ones that I think need to get pushed. Dean Ambrose could have won. They would have loved it.
Yep.
Dolph Ziggler could have won. They would have loved it. Bray Wyatt could have won. They would have loved it. It wasn't the fact that Daniel Bryan didn't win. First of all, it was the fact that Daniel Bryan was treated with zero respect.
Agreed.
And even the guys on Fedcast will say this because they admitted it on the show, that Daniel Bryan was dumped out very unceremoniously.
And that was done on purpose.
And that was done on purpose. And of course we can understand why it was done. But I mean, I can understand a lot of stupid things. I can understand why somebody goes down and robs the fucking pharmacy, even though they have an alarm system. I can understand what they're thinking. They're just morons. Okay? And that's what happened at the Royal Rumble. I understand what Vince was thinking. He's just a moron. At least he was on this night. And he is a lot of the times. And that's my whole beef with WWE. If you had have had him go all the way to the end and been thrown out by Reigns, that would have been such a smarter thing to do.
Or even if he was thrown out by Reigns, not even at the end, but later on.
It was obvious, folks, that when Bryan gets thrown out that early, that unceremoniously, it's not just going to be, you know, swept under the carpet. And the fans aren't just going to get over it within a few guys and be back into the Rumble. This is Daniel Bryan. That's number one. But number two, he shouldn't have been in this match.
No.
And think of if Shawn Michaels, after that whole injury, the post-concussion syndrome, all that stuff. Think about if he, and you could even argue that Bryan is more hot than Shawn was at that time. It may be hard,
you can make that argument.
It may be hard for us to really understand that because we grew up in that time and it's, you know, we obviously have the rose-colored glasses on. But you could make an argument that Daniel Bryan was more over than Shawn Michaels was at that time. I think it would be a very valid argument.
100% agree.
He won at WrestleMania. Woohoo! That was a great moment. Of course it was. It wasn't supposed to happen. The fans stood up. They were activists. And I have to ask you, what would be better for WWE?
Okay.
Fans that reject and are activists and come to the shows and still pay their money but say, fuck this? Or fans like the other 3.5 million since WCW closed down that stop watching wrestling? Which one do you want? WWE? Which one do you think is better business for you? The ones that reject you or the one and keep paying and give you more chances?
And buy your network and buy your pay-per-views and all that. You know, I'm just going to make a point. We talked on this show 3 months before Bryan came back, and you were on this very show and you said to me, if you want Bryan at the top, the fans are going to have to make it happen.
Will Daniel Bryan get another run as world champion? Absolutely he will. Why? Yeah. They don't have a lot of guys that are over. They don't have a lot of guys that can work like him. Nobody can, in fact. But I mean, you know, there's only a few guys in the company that will ever be able to surpass him as a worker, period. Unless he has severe injuries that completely hamper him. He's the best in the company in that sense. You know, he will always be the guy that they're looking past. And that's the whole problem. And I think that's what pisses off the fans.
He's the safety net.
They're not looking at him as the guy. when meanwhile you don't have anyone else that is as over as him. Anyone that says that the world title reign failed, it failed because of who they put him in a feud with immediately. That was the wrong guy. Think of all the matches you could have had with him. Think of all the different directions you could have gone with him following WrestleMania, and they decided, even just rematch with Randy, even a match with Batista, any of those options would have been better than Kane, and everybody knows that. And so they did that. They put him in some terrible storylines. They completely cooled him off. And folks, that's what happens with bad booking. It can happen to the most over guys. Bad booking will cool off even the hottest wrestler.
Well, and let's look at it that way. Let's be legit. He was hurt. Let's be honest. He got hurt.
Vince McMahon's the puppet master. He can make you look amazing. John Cena, looking your direction. Yes. He can make you look terrible as a champion. Rey Mysterio, I'm looking in your direction.
100% agreed on every count.
He was 100% against the Rey Mysterio title reign, following the death of Eddie, that whole story that they did. He was talked into it by even the very top people, Pat Patterson included. They were the ones that put the pressure on Vince to do it. He did it. He put it underneath, the main event. And then before he knew it, Ray was in some bad stuff with Mark Henry. He was fighting all giants. He was losing every single week.
Yeah.
This is what cools off a character.
I totally agree with you, and I think in the cases of those, Vince just still has this ridiculous 80s style image of guys have to be huge. The Dave Batistas of the world. As the ultimate, most recent example of, they brought him back. They thought he was a bigger star than he was, and it failed. Almost worse than anything I've ever seen.
Well, it was just 100% tone deaf, It really was. And again, last year was a disrespect as well from the standpoint of not putting him in there. Again, I can understand why he did it. Can also understand why the junkie goes down and robs the pharmacy.
Yeah. With
the alarm system and the cameras. I understand it's just stupid. And both years, it wasn't about Daniel Bryan winning. It really, really, truly, honestly, it wasn't. And even if the fans shit on the ending of Roman throwing out Bryan, at least it would have been at the very end of the Rumble. I think the fact that they misfired so bad by thinking they could just do it early, sweep it under the carpet, everyone's going to be over it because, again, there's so many guys that are so over, right? So the most over guy's here, but he's going to just get swept under the rug. But we got all these other guys. They're just, nobody gives a fuck.
No.
And
here's the thing. You brought in your movie star.
And, I mean, on paper, that might have seemed like a good theory. But again, this is what they should have done. They should have had it be Bryan and Roman at the end. Bryan gets thrown out, and when the crowd's booing, that's when The Rock comes in.
Yeah.
There is how you should have booked that show. And again, the hate on WWE is not an isolated thing to the Royal Rumble.
No.
They've had a stink on them for months, for good reason, in my opinion. Because even if it is sports entertainment, even if we're supposed to focus on the entertainment and not the sport, if you want to say that, then we're going to have to hold them to a higher standard, see? Raise the bar a little bit now. Because even the worst soap opera tells a story from beginning to end. But it could have been someone else. It didn't have to be him. He just needed to be treated with more respect. The fans needed to be treated with more respect. And the whole canceled WWE Network thing, I will 1,000% stand up and say, yes, yes, yes.
This is important, I know.
Very, very important, because a lot of people have misconstrued this. Hashtag cancel WWE Network, because it wasn't hashtag stop going to house shows. It wasn't hashtag stop buying merch. It was going for the fucking nuts. What are the nuts? The WWE Network. So when cancel the WWE Network is top trending for 24 hours...
And beyond.
and being picked up by Time Magazine.
Yes.
Right? Do you think Time Magazine then did a story the next day saying, well, never mind, they actually went to 1 million subscribers? Nope.
No, of course.
So most people in the mainstream just read that and said, wow, they must have really put on a shitty show. It must have been something epic for Time to pick it up. The cancel the WWE Network thing was brilliant in theory. It was absolutely terrible in execution. And when you said that the movement of the fans pissed you off more than the Rumble, I agree. And here's where I'm pissed off. I'm pissed off. Wrestling fans are stupid enough to believe that they can just create and take pictures, screen captions of their cancel page, and that'll be enough.
No.
They know who canceled and who didn't. So when you say that and you're trying to make a statement and you don't cancel, there you go. There's your problem right there,
Okay.
because they look at it, and they say, well, these guys are always talking shit, they're always bitching, they're always moaning, but they're never going to do anything.
Don't go on social media and complain. Don't write things. Just turn it off. If you are that upset, and I realize some people may have been, turn it off. You put out this crappy show, and then everybody talked about it Monday morning. I'm sure there were people that signed up just to see how shitty it was. Number one. Number two, they had just launched in a large part of Western Europe and the UK, so they're not going to go anywhere.
The timing was as much a part of it as anything. They had just launched in the UK, and like you say, there was that whole thing of it was so bad, or so controversial, I've got to see it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a shame that a show that was, had one of the greatest matches I've ever seen, definitely one of the greatest WWE matches I've seen in ages.
We haven't even talked about that yet.
And that's an injustice.
Yeah.
That is an injustice.
I'm in a situation, I subscribe to the network. What I watch on the network right now is not anything current, outside of maybe NXT. That's a whole different thing. I find myself digging for the old footage and jonesing for the footage from the 70s and the 80s that actually isn't WWE's footage. Even what they did, I love Daniel Bryan, but I know that I just have this, they're going to screw him over every time. And it's not the storyline way, but just because he's not the guy they wanted.
All these things, all the mainstream attention, they've completely shied away from with him. We still don't know, because we never believed in him and gave him that kind of protection. He was never protected in that way. And now we're in the Roman Reigns era, and this isn't personal with Roman, because I want him to succeed. I think that he has a look and something about him that is very marketable. It's just not time. It just hasn't been cultivated yet. He is jumping over these guys that are ready. I'm thinking of Bryan. And again, the neck injury doesn't change anything for me.
No.
Because they didn't shy away from Steve Austin after that. They didn't shy away from Triple H after that. They didn't shy away from John Cena after that, although he's a freak. They didn't shy away from Edge after that. So it's like, I don't believe that just because he had this neck injury. I think the timing of his return was horrible. I think it was really just that in itself was a disrespect to him, because they basically just used him as something to sort of beef up the Rumble. And it should have been something where he came back after the Rumble and they put him in a non-title match with somebody else. That would have been fine if he returned after the Rumble and just got into some kind of match, because people would have just been happy he was back.
Yeah.
And it's already been months of bad television. And then we got to see their execution of this after their brilliant plan last year, which I don't blame on the fans either. You have to understand, the fans realize that Vince likes the big guys and that he's not a fan of Daniel Bryan. We can't change that. There's nothing we can do to erase the fact that the fans already know that, and that it really doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out anyway. Just look at the way they treat the smaller guys compared to the big guys. Look at the way they protected John Cena compared to how they protected Daniel Bryan. There's no comparison. Or CM Punk, or anyone else. We never got to find out with those guys what they were really capable of. CM Punk had to go and become top heel for him to really, reach his full potential. So, I mean, that's where we're at right now, is that it's just, Roman right now doesn't have anything to offer, really. He hasn't had a good match yet. He hasn't cut a good promo yet. That's it. That's the problem right there.
There is no connection between the fans and Roman Reigns.
No, absolutely. And this is my point, man, is that the Warrior was over as hell. The Warrior could cut a promo. Whether you think he cut your kind of promo or not, nobody can deny the charisma of the Ultimate Warrior.
No.
And he drew fucking money. He drew fucking merchandise. It made sense to go with him. It made sense to go with him. Did he surpass Hogan when they gave him the chance? No. But at the same time, it made sense to go with him and say, yeah, this is the next guy because of all those factors. Roman Reigns isn't selling merchandise really right now. I know that for a fact, that his merch is not anything to brag about.
No.
And he hasn't cut a good promo, and he hasn't had a good match. So, yeah, fucking right he's being pushed because he's big, and fucking right this isn't the year for it. Now, will I give it a chance after the Raw that I saw the night after? Yes.
Yes.
Because I really enjoyed that stuff. I really enjoyed the segment with Paul Heyman. When they give him the right stuff, Brock Lesnar's the best.
Well, no,
He's the best.
And I agree with you, but understand, the stuff that I'm triggering from a couple of years ago was trash.
Or a couple of weeks ago with all the baby
That
stuff.
was horrible.
It was different, I'll give it that.
Yeah.
But they did so much more for character development and just sort of giving some more backbone. But I mean, in one night, yeah, like the bringing in of the family. Like, if you had done all this going into the Rumble and told this story, this is what I think a lot of people too like had a problem with. There was really no story for Roman going in and winning the Rumble. They didn't tug at the heartstrings. In the Rumble itself, he didn't really do anything. Last year, he was the man. Last year, he was fucking throwing out all kinds of guys. Didn't he set a record last year?
12.
Right. So
12
it's like,
guys.
Last year was the absolute prototype of how you do it and what you should have done with him this year. And, you know, they didn't. And they thought, again, Vince got cocky. And speaking of Vince getting cocky, you know, the problem with the 1 million subscribers now is that Vince McMahon is extremely competitive. He is extremely confrontational, even at 70 years old. And what you saw on Thursday was a result of that. I think a lot of people were holding their breath, not wanting to comment on the Rumble because we got to see what they do on the first live show. What they do on the first live show, ladies and gentlemen, for Roman Reigns, who had such a horrible reception, and this was supposed to be his big crowning achievement. So how do we come back and do something to make Roman look really strong, in the words of CM Punk? Let's put him in there with the Big Show. Let's put him in there in a long, stumbling, fucking what was that submission that Show was doing?
Oh,
he was
horrible.
hanging him upside down. They were falling asleep. And, you know, the reception for Roman was much better on SmackDown. Absolutely. Yeah. And I never thought that it would be the same reaction as Philly. That was a horrible way to do damage control with Roman. And the bottom line is, I think it was intentional. I think Vince said, you know, these people think he sucks. They think he's boring.
There you go.
Fucking here's some boring. Do you think that was boring? He's going to go in there with Big Show. Big Show's going to hang him upside down, and Roman's going to have his hands on the mat.
Then explain to me why you feel the need to put Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns in a match in Memphis a month before Mania.
Okay, this is what's going to happen at the next pay-per-view. And I don't want anyone at all to get any kind of ideas of, if you're going into it for a good match, I think you're probably going to get it. I think that Daniel Bryan is going to do everything he can because this is his job for this show. His role is to make Roman look as good as possible. What they should have been doing the whole time, essentially. Everything that I've been complaining about. Putting him in there with Kane. Putting him in there with Big Show. Thinking that look at the end of that Rumble, man. You don't think that had Vince McMahon written all over it?
Oh, it totally did.
About Roman Reigns eliminating these two giants and the crowd will go wild, pal. No.
The crowd didn't care.
They were the slowest fucking slugs, and that's no disrespect. That's not a knock, much like Triple H would say. Bryan's going in there to be enhancement talent.
I know that.
Glorified enhancement talent, and that's his role for this pay-per-view, is to make Roman look as good as possible. And is the crowd going to get hot at the end of that match? Yes. Are they going to capitalize it and, get something out of this heat if it continues and have him turn heel at WrestleMania? Possibly. All of the seeds are there for it. Like, especially after that Heyman thing. The seeds, you really don't need to do a whole lot of overthinking about this. It's just a matter of, do you really truly believe in 2015 Roman is ready to step in and take John Cena's spot? Is he really going to be the guy at this stage of the game, or are you going to push him too early and he's going to end up being like everybody else you've tried to do this with? There's what you got to say. Is he going to turn into a Sheamus by the end of the year? And who knows? Nobody knows that. Are all the signs there that Roman is going to fall flat on his face with this run? Yes. Will I give it a chance? Sure. If he has a great match with Brock, do you think I'm going to feel all stupid? Do you think I'm going to be here like, Fedcast was right? No. Yeah. We're both going to be like, great match. Justin, hey Justin, you see the match? It kicked ass. I want to see a good match from those two.
Yes, I do too.
It's a much better option than a lot of things you can come up with. Okay, it's really not that bad of a main event. And when I saw those two guys face to face, I thought, hey, there is something to build here. Can Roman keep up? Roman, does he have the psychology to have a good match? Because it's not about athletics.
No, I know, but that's the question.
So we'll wait and see on that one. Seth was the star of the Rumble. That was the shining, the golden star like Kota Ibushi. You know, he was and he even did the Phoenix Splash. What do you know? But watch that match a couple years from now. Just completely removed from the show and just enjoy it. And when all the stink is off this show and the finish and the fans and everything like that. Yeah. But again, poorly executed. SmackDown poorly executed. But the Raw the night after I thought was excellent.
Excellent, yeah. Well done.
And you could do so much with Reigns, really. When you really think about it, video package wise, you could do a ton of stuff.
Yeah, why weren't you doing this a month ago? I don't get it.
You could polish him up and make him something special. So far, not doing it. Because they already had him lose to Big Show. He fought Big Show again.
Yeah, I lost.
On Raw. And pinned. Pinned. This
is
the guy that's going into WrestleMania. So again.
Well, unless they're really not sure. I'm beginning to wonder.
So again, it's not part of a group think on my behalf. It's part of me watching this product that I've watched for my entire life. And it just seems to be one misstep after the other. It's one of those things. It's just like a relationship where you just go, one argument too far. It's like, okay, now I feel like I can't go back.
I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I just kind of look at it as, I get the sense that WWE, as much as they made Roman win the Royal Rumble, that's great. Every day they go to TV, they can't decide what they want to do.
Again, don't anybody start thinking Bryan's going and being in that WrestleMania match. It's not even about him winning the title. It's like, I'm not in any kind of a camp that says Bryan's got to be the world champion now and forever. I actually, again, think he should have just been coming back at WrestleMania. But they can't hold him off because they're just, for whatever reason, they want to get him back on the road. They want to get their money's worth.
They need a star, let's be honest. They need something that was...
What kind of a treatment was that at the Rumble? If they need a star, they're going to be, starless very soon.
Okay, let me rephrase that. They need a workhorse.
Okay, and that's what he's going to be. That's going to be his position in the company.
Yeah, they need a workhorse. They've got a couple, but not enough.
Will he be the Bret Hart, though, that, when we don't have anyone else, or when there's this factor, or Shawn walks out, loses his smile? I think he will be the Bret Hart.
He's that guy.
That they go back and they say, well, let's give him a reign. Let's give him a little run for like 6 months or whatever.
Okay. Away from all the Roman Reigns, Daniel Bryan stuff, I do have a question because I'm getting slightly confused as time goes on.
Okay. Where's
Seth going with the briefcase? Seth thing's still sitting there too.
How much longer does he have before he can cash it in?
July.
So something could go, and that'll be in the summer, eh? So that might be something for the summer. I'm not sure. Something for a hot Raw, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm wondering because they've had him held that thing for a long time, and I'm like, they know he's there because he talks about it all the time. It's not like they're ignoring it.
See, in a perfect world, next year's WrestleMania would be headlined by Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins. And that would be Roman Reigns, first title win.
Agreed.
That would be the beginning of Roman Reigns. And everything for the next year would be about building him up.
Yep.
If it's supposed to be entertainment, then the entertainment part of it, they're dropping the ball on that. They're not telling stories beginning to end. They're dropping a lot of things. You don't see that in other shows. And that's the problem with wrestling. And that's where we're at right now. The Triple H podcast. Do you care to weigh in on this, Sean?
I've never seen a guy tap dance more
than
I did
thank you.
In an hour and 15. Clearly he might have some different opinions from his father-in-law / boss.
I don't need to see any more of this towing the company line stuff. I get enough of that through their documentaries, which there hasn't been any recently that I've actually gotten into. The Savage one, I guess, but.
Savage one. I'm interested in the Paul Heyman one. I haven't watched it yet, but.
I don't need to hear any more of these. Certainly don't, other than, to see the girl that's in my fitness videos. I certainly don't need to see a Stephanie version of this.
No, I don't think we'll see one.
I think of anyone, she will be the most fake, and she will be the most
And
corporate.
I don't think they'll do it. No.
And I don't think you'll ask her about Savage, that's for sure.
No.
The stuff with CM Punk, to me, was the one that really bothered me.
Yeah.
Where it was like, I'm smarter than this. I can totally tell by the way it played on television. Forget everything else. Forget the fact that, we now know and CM Punk has come out and basically given all the details of everything. Look at the way that was booked with Punk. He got over to a whole other level. Forget just the internet. Forget the internet darling. He was making mainstream news with that pipe bomb, a wrestling promo, for God's sakes. And not only was he making news, not only was he the most over guy in terms of reaction, he was selling more merchandise than John Cena at that time. And that's something that I think a lot of people sort of overlook. They forget about that. Because it's like that was the whole complaint with Punk is, yeah, he's over, he's a great worker, great talker, but he isn't drawing like John Cena. He isn't, his segments aren't rated as high as John Cena, which they never were that. But my point is that everything was there telling you this guy is ready. This guy is white hot. You got to capitalize on it. And what's the first thing they do? They put him in a feud with Triple H, who was not even wrestling at the time. And he comes out of retirement, or he comes out of, inactivity, and he beats CM Punk clean in the ring. Both of them are baby faces. And then the next pay-per-view, instead of a rematch, instead of CM Punk ever getting a rematch, he ends up in a tag team with Triple H. So now Triple H gets 2 pay-per-views back-to-back where he gets to beat the guy that's the hottest guy and then get the rub from the guy that's the hottest guy. Yeah. And he tries to, again, he plays the good cop. And Vince is the bad cop. Oh, those are just Vince decisions. I'm so sure, Triple H, that you had such a problem with the hottest guy in wrestling laying down clean for you. I'm sure it just absolutely just tore you up. So that was my opinion on that. I thought he just completely glossed over that. And then
and I agree.
Kevin Nash comes in, all this stuff that goes nowhere. And again, CM Punk never recovers from that. He never gets back to that level of popularity again. That never happens. With that said, the recruitment of Triple H blows away the recruitment of Johnny Ace, that's for sure, in terms of that NXT roster right now. And it just keeps – the funny thing is that there's all these guys you forgot about that are just happening now that are starting to debut, like Solomon Crowe, like Sami Callihan, former CZW guy, was a tag team partner, longtime tag team partner of Jon Moxley, otherwise known as Dean Ambrose, one of his best friends. I do predict those two will end up having some wild matches or be a tag team at some point. It would be cool for Ambrose to at some point have a crazy friend that comes in and watches his back. Wouldn't that be fucking good?
That would be way awesome.
So Sammy's the perfect choice for that. And right now, one thing about WWE, especially with NXT, I don't have any, doubt about, is that they will utilize these guys who have a past. Because right now, you look at the match that's happening on the finals of the NXT show. I think WWE is going to be like on fire if these guys are the ones that get pushed. The question is, do they all show up and Vince says, fuck, too small, god damn it. Or, what's he going to think of a Devin? Is he going to think he's a good-looking guy with a great body who's got a lot of charisma and can work his ass off? Or is he just going to see the pale skin and give him a gay, salon parlor gimmick? Who knows?
Kalisto coming your way.
That's exactly. Who do you think fucking came up with that brilliant idea, I bet? He sees him and, fuck, just take him out of the mask and just a gay barber. Like birthday cake. A more flamboyant doctor. So, I mean, that's the one thing. You see this great crop coming up, but you always have that in the back of your head. Fuck, what will Vince think of a Sami Zayn?
Oh, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens.
Because I know a lot of people sort of just would assume that Vince, because it's his company, he's on top of all this stuff. Vince, he doesn't understand what Triple H is doing right now. And that's sort of, again, my fear when he sees
a scary thing.
When Kevin Owens or someone like that gets called up, is Vince going to understand, or is he going to change the gimmick like it seems to be the case with everybody else that's coming up?
Well, look what happened to the Ascension.
Look what happened to the Ascension. My God, talk about a cannibalization. This isn't a burial, folks. This is fucking eating of human flesh. It's sad, man. I don't even understand. Are they supposed to be a parody of an old makeup tag team? Or are they supposed to actually be like a new makeup tag team?
They're supposed to be a new makeup tag team, but they keep bringing up all the old tag teams. And I'm like,
well, then why did they get clowned out all the time? The Legion of Doom never got clowned out like this by the commentators.
No.
Fucking hell.
JBL buries them regularly.
Right.
You do this segment on Homecoming where they get beat up by the Outlaws, the APA, and the NWO for no reason. I don't understand how within the same company and you have two people, how there's that big of a disconnect between what Vince wants and what Triple H is trying to cultivate.
Well, it's a generational gap. And people talk about Vince, not having his finger on the pulse of the modern day, and it's true. It's true.
So
but
just to wrap this all up into a nice little
NXT for right now, I would just love it if these guys stay on NXT until the end of time. Like, this is a great show, a great roster. You got more guys coming up that are great.
Before we get out to just John Cena challenging for the U.S. title against Rusev, what do you think about that whole angle that they're doing at the next pay-per-view?
I'm not exactly sure why they're doing it at the next pay-per-view. Why they're not saving it till WrestleMania?
Yeah, me neither. And I certainly didn't like when they were saying, this is a WrestleMania match that we're giving you at Fastlane. It's like, what do you mean it was a WrestleMania match? Like, you're doing it again. You're doing that thing again. Shit or get off the pot. That's my take. If you're going to turn around and complain, if you're going to hold this disdain and say the fans know too much, and Triple H really did kind of, in his own little diplomatic way, say that as well. We'll wait and see. But, I mean, the road to WrestleMania, we're there. Roman Reigns just got pinned. We'll wait and see what the next brilliant decision is, how we're going to get this guy ready, this kid ready for the big match with Brock Lesnar. Because you could do something great or just a masturbatory orgasm. Either way, we're going to take off for today. Thanks for being here.
So just to wrap this all up into a nice little closing argument, I think I would just have to mention the fact that WWE created this monster with the fans because it's them that have constantly said, we're all about freedom of expression. We're all about boo who you hate, cheer who you like. The choice is yours, and we listen to our audience. So to heel on the fans for doing what they've been told to do, even if they know it is bullshit, to heel on them for doing what they've been told to do, if you don't like something, let us know. We're listening. You're just further reinforcing the hypocrisy that is WWE. So from myself, from the Commissioner Sean Cunningham, we want to say peace, love, closure, and Sean Z, tell him the rest.
Audio Revolution.
Commissioner Sean Cunningham's like saying,
I just want to say thanks. We had a blast night. Absolutely. Everything was that going to be part of the evolution? Was it something you came up with, or something that Paul came up with, or the bookers, or how did that work?
At the time, Paul didn't even know I could talk.
That I know it's something that you've talked about a billion times before, but I have to ask it.
The Commissioner Sean Cunningham's like...